I'm going to kick it off just in understanding how you got into the world of logistics, and what that looked like.
I got into the world of logistics back in 2010.
Yeah.
No, 2001, sorry.
2010
as our own business, but 2001.
Yeah.
And it was, my journey really started as a byproduct of trialing different things, going through different management levels within other organizations. But actually I went to work for a family business. They were struggling in the warehouse.
Yeah.
They needed literally just some summertime cover, just picking, packing, helping with order processing. And that's what I did. I just said, I'm just going to come and do that for the summer whilst I really evaluate what the next thing's going to look like.
Yeah.
Just so happened conveniently, that was at a good time of growth for them, really, where they were taking on, new work. They'd got new customers coming on board. So their need was growing, and physically they were growing. They took their first warehouse space. It was about 1,800 square feet. So, a large garage in today's terms. But,
yeah.
And I really sort of cut my teeth just supporting them through that. So just then bringing in, we need some systems, we need some processes, some control.
Yeah.
And it kind of really grew from there, relatively small team.
Yeah.
And then after probably 12 months of being in that role, we actually started to find that we're getting traction with some of the services we're providing, some of the clients we're working with. So we're plugging in at the time to the likes of Cummins Engines, Ford Motor Company, Jaguar Land Rover, drip feeding product into their production line. So think of it as complex B2B.
Got you.
And that was kind of where it all really started. And, it all comes back to service, customer relationship, and it just carried on growing quite organically, really.
And was there a moment where, because you said you've started it in a way of trying to work out what you wanted to do or what direction you wanted to go. Was there anything in particular that sort of drew you in to say, I actually love this, or I like this? This is...
I think the biggest buzz I get from it at the moment is it's solving the operational problem, or coming up with an idea of, this is the challenge in front of us, here's a solution. And it's more about watching the output of that delivery and seeing, maybe it's not you doing it, but actually that was the problem we had before.
Yeah.
That's where we are today on the other end of it. And actually look at the improvement we've seen, whether that's improvement commercially, whether that's improvement for customer experience, whether that's efficiency, employee happiness, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
I think that's where the kind of the buzz comes from. And if you're in that mindset, it's quite an entrepreneurial one, but never 2 days are the same. So it's always a little bit of a different challenge, and that kind of keeps you, what's today going to throw at me? Some days it throws things that are not so nice to deal with, but that's generally where I think the biggest part comes from.
And were you given a fairly open book to how things were ran in that small business, and were they, did that sort of give you the...
It progressed really quickly. So originally it was really contained to sort of warehouse and operations, but when you really start picking at the underlying of what drives each of these things, you very quickly touch on sales, finance, and you get sort of entwined in the other areas of the business because it is all interconnected. So probably over the first 12 months, the remit really just broadened, and I was touching systems, I was touching IT architecture, finances. I'm not going to say marketing, but in terms of, we didn't have a logo. So just little things like that. And back in 2000, when you get your PowerPoint out or your paint and you come up with your little logo that you're quite proud of, and you make it spin on your first website, that's the kind of sort of thing you get into. But we've moved past that now. No,
very cool. And then you jumped into 2010, which is where you co-founded Fidelity. Where were you at in life at that point, and how did that all?
So our journey kind of up to 2010 is very much that business, that family business we were in at the time, grew rapidly through that period of time. We ended up going from this 1,800 square feet we were in to probably just north of 150,000 square feet, about 60 employees. But Simon and I got together around 2005, I think it was, in that business at the time. We had a huge amount of autonomy, grew it to that level. And then we got to a point where that business was acquired by a much larger organization. And that really kind of pushed us into a decision around, we've been talking and thinking around what does the future look like? But it presented an opportunity, a risk, but to kind of do things ourselves. And that was really what drove us down that path. But at the time, we were quite young. We'd only got our wives to to worry about. We didn't have children, so we didn't have a huge, I suppose, network that was going to be impacted by starting something of our own. Apart from my own personal experience with, waiting for at the time children to come along, not happening, resign, following week. Guess what? Here comes your first child. So
no way.
there's a bit of pressure that twists at that time and happens. But thinking back, it was it is a very exciting time. But I think Simon's touched on it before, but just you don't know when opportunity arises. So you can plan, you can put the best strategy in place, but if opportunity is there in front of you, you've got to decide to deal with what's on the plate in front of you there and then.
No, I hear you. And was there never a conversation around equity before that business got sold? Because it sounds like you both were really instrumental for actually helping the growth of that business.
There wasn't, and I think maybe that was just part of the journey that business was on. I think that journey for them was they were coming to the end of their career. They were looking for a full exit. I think we at the time weren't really looking at making our own sort of management buyout or acquisition of what was there from an equity point of view. We also felt there was a slightly different direction. We very much focused on the solution side of the logistics operation rather than the buying and selling part, which was a big part of what they were doing as well, which was cash intensive. It's a different model slightly. So it was a good opportunity for us to kind of break those two bits apart and really focus on the kind of the logistics and the 3PL element of what we were doing.
Yeah, that's interesting because they were in effect a manufacturer, is that?
So they were working really closely with the likes of Ford Motor Company, CNH, sort of automotive and agricultural manufacturing businesses, helping them both with sourcing.
Right.
So they would own the supply chain. They would go and find a supplier. We would do the buying element of it and we'd do all the logistics.
Got you, right. Okay.
So you've got kind of that sourcing arm of the business, which was really their background. And when I came into the business, that was when we were transitioning now into more of a 3PL. And it was kind of driven at the time by one of the brands we were working with, we were buying product from, actually won a contract with Cummins Engines here in the UK. And they won it directly themselves. They needed some line feed support. We'd got an established relationship. They turned around to us and said, hey, look, we know you guys, we trust you guys. This is what we've got on our plate right now. Do you think you could help us with line feed? And that really was kind of that baptism by fire of how we transitioned from just running our own warehouse facility for doing it for another party. Yeah.
Interesting. And you've mentioned they had some pretty set out verticals and sectors that they delved into. What was that like? How did you discover some of the sectors at Fidelity you guys have really become quite accustomed to, quite specialist within? How did that go?
So I think there's definitely a legacy of that old experience. It's a much smaller part of what we do today as a business as Fidelity, but just a lot of, I think, alignment both in market research, but also where our tech and our experience dovetails in quite nicely.
Right.
When you think about automotive, the big takeaways for me are really about process control, quality, and traceability. When a part goes wrong on the production lines, you want to be able to call it and go, that's the box it came from. I need to know everything about that box. I need to know where those products came from. I need to know which batch they came from. I need to know which shipment they turned up from. I need to know what other vehicles could be affected by this defect. So when you then talk about tech and systems, you've got to get right into that depth. If you've got to be able to see that data layer. And when you bring that back up and go, well, that's really no different to pharmaceutical, medical, fitness, well-being, anything that has that control element, batches, expiry dates. So we've kind of geared ourselves up really well to handle that side from the outset. And that just transitions really nicely into those kind of core verticals that we really try and focus on today. But it's more about where do we add the value? And is that value in the traceability, the systems, the real-time data that we're collating, the fact that we can shape and mold different picking or operational activities around them, or is it in the physical movement of the goods? And it's kind of the balance of the two normally. And
if you were to say, because I appreciate you probably don't want to pigeonhole yourself to, just certain some verticals, but if you were to say, 3 really strong verticals,
they're probably the 3 biggest we're seeing growing at the moment as well through the UK. So number 1 is probably that wellness, that fitness vertical right now, supplements, probably driven, I think, by a lot of what we're seeing now in tech, just subscription models.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot of people moving down that route now, which is great for us in terms of helping profiling orders as well, because you've got this repetitive task that's happening every day. That's probably the number one. Pet products is probably the second biggest vertical that we're seeing at the moment. I think that is a vertical that's growing in the UK as well right now.
Yeah.
And it's also one of those that's probably a little bit more robust to kind of, I won't say recession proof, but people still spend money on their pets. They still buy those bits. They treat them that, they will forgo other things to keep doing that. So that, again, I think that's another vertical.
Yeah.
I think the more established ones, fashion and apparel is still the biggest sector, but I think that's matured now. We're not seeing anything like the growth in that, and the complexity is very different. Sits more around that returns process.
Yeah.
Getting product back into a resaleable position as quick as possible, really.
Yeah. It's interesting on the pet one, because I think in COVID there was that growth of eCom, but then also because of furlough and work from home became a thing, like everyone was buying dogs and cats, and it was
that's probably where the stat comes from. And the stat is, I think UK's pet ownership has increased 20% since COVID.
Okay.
So that's probably what's that aligns really with that sort of information.
No, interesting. And then like you touch on with the eCom bit, I guess it's the returns element that becomes probably quite tricky, and the fact of
it's probably one of the most challenging areas to seamlessly integrate, because there are so many variables within it, and it affects all verticals and sectors to different degrees. But it can be something from as simple as if it's a supplement or a wellness product, it's coming back. Is the seal intact? Have I got the same batch that I shipped out? Yeah. If it's an electronic component, if you're sending out a new watch to someone, it's got a serial number on it, and there's someone back saying, "Oh, it's faulty." You want to make sure that the watch you're getting back is the one you sent them in the first place. So there's a lot of complexity that sits around returns. That is operational complexity. Yeah. But then how do you bring that into the technology? And that becomes not just a question of how do you process that into technology, but how does your technology link back into the returns loop? Yeah. How are you ultimately meeting customer expectation around they're looking for a refund or a replacement? Yeah. So how do you do that quickly, efficiently?
And is the returns partner, does that sit with the brand, or does that also sit with you guys? Can you decide or recommend to the brands, you want to use a Zigzag or a Rebound? Like who do you guys?
It's a definite partnership approach, and I don't think there is a one size fits all solution for that. Normally a brand will come to us and say, this is what it looks like today. Okay. Can we keep that? Can we integrate with that? Or have you got any suggestion or recommendation where we can refine or do something different with it? More often than not, I'd say the brands that we're talking to most frequently are struggling with this as well. Yeah. So they're also looking at what solutions are out there. Is there anything you can recommend that's kind of already integrated and working? But outside of the returns loop, it's about understanding what the brand's expectation is. Yeah. And just sitting down with them and agreeing, what do you want to happen with the normal process of a return? What does good look like? What does resaleable look like? What does faulty look like? Yeah. And again, just coming back to communication with customer.
Interesting. Yeah. It just plugs like we had a guest on Giorgio who don't know whether you caught that episode, but he runs and owns Back Tech, and they basically have the product image like taken, and it allows you to essentially sort before the product's even arrived, basically.
Sounds like something we need to integrate into our tech stack.
That was a guilty plug, I'll be honest, but no, but it is a big, it is a big component of it, and probably, like I said to him, it seems really obvious. It seems like a really obvious idea, but sometimes they're the best ones. But in terms of the returns partners, then that you have partnerships with, are there any you can sort of mention? Or
I think the biggest ones really are the ones that plug into the back end of those really popular e-com platforms. So the likes of Shopify integrations, that's the number one e-com platform being used out there at the moment. I think also it depends on what your partner's tech looks like. Yeah. So as you scale up and we start to deal with different partners who are, their revenue range has gone from maybe 10 to 20 million, maybe they're in the 50 to 100 million range. Their tech stack is invariably changing as well. Yeah. And there'll come a point where they'll probably transition to a holistic ERP come single system that they want to run their business. So rather than allowing us now to connect with Shopify directly or with their returns platform, they want us to connect into their ERP.
Yeah.
And then we're pulling everything, and that's where we've got to do. We work a lot on the tech stack side of things,
right?
So that is seamless. We're passing data back all the time. One of the challenges with that, as we find, is larger tech stacks.
Yeah,
can be a little bit more tricky to integrate with from a data exchange level. In terms of, there is definitely a legacy EDI expectation with retail B2B that is still present today. So you've still got to be able to cater for that level of technology whilst working on those real-time APIs that you need for what you're looking on D2C.
EDI, just what's that in?
So electronic data interchange. So think of it as passing CSV files backwards and forwards to each other down an encrypted channel.
Right.
It's as simple as that, really, in its crudest form. But the problem with that is because you're generating a file, your data's accurate at the point you generate the file.
Yeah.
If you've got a returns loop or a file transfer loop where you're using a third party, it takes you 2 hours to get us that file.
Yeah.
When we finally get the file, the data's 2 hours out of date. Now, we will process it automatically. It will go through all of the normal workflows, but that now you've got a 2 hour lag. Now, if a customer has cancelled an order, changed an order, something's happened in that window, you're now into, you need safety nets, you need features, you need something that allows that to happen. Whereas if we're API connected or webhooks, it's immediate, it's real time. And that, I think, just is one of the tech challenges we see coming in as you work with different layers within the supply chain. Yeah. And sometimes people want to connect on multiple. Maybe orders want to come in through EDI from their retail network. Yeah. But actually they want API from their eCom network, and they still want to be able to come in and either upload a CSV file or key an order in themselves manually. So you've often got to offer a suite of all scenarios kind of molded into one. Yeah.
Interesting. And what sort of challenges have you found in terms of growing or going through some growth of Fidelity? Because obviously we had Simon on earlier. It's probably worth mentioning or re-mentioning the profile of Fidelity. So, just for this episode. So where's Fidelity at right now, and what sort of challenges have you had in sort of growing the business?
Fidelity today is, we're international in terms of we're in 3 countries. We have 3 warehouse locations in the Netherlands, 1, soon to be 2 in the UK, and we've now got 2 in Salt Lake in US. We employ around 130 people on direct payroll, and then we scale up our temp workforce as and when needed. But we're in a growth phase, so we're still expanding. We're still physically expanding, and we're still adding to our workforce as well. Revenue-wise, this year we're probably going to be somewhere around the 20-21 million range, and we're growing in the region of 40% year over year at the moment. So our goal is to, within the next 3 years, kind of we've got that 50 million headline in our sights of what we're trying to achieve. Really
nice. Really nice profile. And then Simon mentioned that you guys took investment. Was it 2019? Yeah. What was that like, and what led to that decision to go down the investment backed route?
It's a good question. It has a couple of different facets, I suppose, to its answer. I think ultimately at the time we weren't actively seeking outright investment to grow. We had identified slightly earlier in the journey the power of the technology stack that we wanted to create. Yeah. So when we sold off our eCom business in 2016, all of our time went into developing software solutions. So we own that total software stack now. We'd recognized that, continuing to grow just as 2 individuals funding the growth, you're limited really by your 4 walls. Yeah. And the speed in which you can continue growing is how much can you afford to make those 4 walls bigger. Yeah. They're not elastic, unfortunately. I wish they were, but they're not. And we recognized that also the technology was one way of taking really some of the value we add to our customers and to our partners is that knowledge about the supply chain, and how we bake that into software to try and find a way of also growing without having to keep putting more warehouse locations. At the time, what actually happened was when we released our software, we actually have clients they're not warehouse clients, but they use the software themselves. Nice. But they also turn around to us and say, where does the knowledge come from the software? Where does the input come from? That's amazing. Well, would you like to do our 3PL as well? So inadvertently, we ended up creating a really good tool at not only just helping educate and solve other people's problems, but it became a real value add to our physical operations, which is where our kind of convergence of technology and physical come from now, in terms of we don't believe you can succeed at the fulfillment side, the physical element, if you don't own the technology. You really got to control that, because it empowers the physical side as you're growing it.
Yeah.
So that investment for us came really on a realization of we'd actually won a rather large contract that wouldn't fit into our physical site we were in at the time.
Yeah.
We'd kind of gone and looked around and gone, okay, well, we've got a solution. We can go back to the bank. We can borrow funds. We can take a site over here. And through that journey, we got introduced to our current partners, our investment partners, who came to see us in our, what was a relatively small warehouse at the time, and said, interesting exchange of ideas, but they were looking for, a company to partner with right at the early part of the journey in the logistics and 3P space. So at the time, really for us, it became a decision of, we got two options on the table. We can grow, in smaller chunks our way, little bite sizes, or if the only limitation to growth at rapid scale is essentially cash flow and cash availability, does having a partner on board allow us to turbocharge that journey? Does it open up more doors for us that we would otherwise not be able to look at? And that was really the kind of the critical decision we took at the time back then, of just going, well, we think it does.
500K gets injected into the business. Where do you start in terms of spend? How did you guys go about?
So we had a pretty clear plan for what that was going to allow us to do. For us at the time, it was really around infrastructure. So it allowed us to consolidate down the three smaller warehouses we were in into one larger facility, high bay.
Yeah.
And it really went into fitting that out, racking, lighting, networking, all of the things that you have to put into a brand new building when you're setting it up for the first time. But it was dovetailed in quite nicely with, we'd already got new work coming into the pipeline to feed some of that growth. The unknown part to us at the time was we took keys to that premises January, right before COVID.
Right.
2 months later, the world's shutting down.
Yeah.
And we're thinking to ourselves, was this the silliest move we could have made? Or is this a genius strategic decision? And jury was out early on with that, but I think the ultimate solution for us was we thought that was going to be a 3 to 5 year move. Mm-hmm. It actually turned out to be 6, 7 months. Wow. We were already full by kind of September of that same year, and we're looking around what's the next phase of growth going to look like. And that was really kind of the start of our journey now, from transitioning from what was a relatively small, I won't say family style business, but it was, a lot of people wore a lot of different hats into really a true organization that was growing.
And what made it take 9 years
to get to that stage?
To get to that stage, because normally you hear about the investment starting quick and fast, and it's always a plan. But like, you guys seem to have done, kept it small for 9 years, and then had that capital injection. So like, what?
I think it's a good question. I think the early part of probably our journey was definitely more of a lifestyle sustaining business early on. Yeah. Okay. So we built it to a point within a nice facility, but a much smaller one. Yeah. Different facets to what we were doing. We were still getting involved in lots of different areas of the business, from supporting on the warehouse floor to sales to marketing to finance. So fingers in lots of pies, if you will, or lots of different hats that you're wearing within it. And it was comfortable for a period, but I think it was really as we came out the back of selling our eCom business, realizing how much time that was really sucking from our ability to focus on growing the 3PL and the software. That was probably, I would say, the anchor that held us back for that period of time. And once we released that, when I think about the hours that went into the development of software from 2016 to 2018, and then from the investment coming on in 2019, it probably looks more like your traditional VC style profile now of, okay, well, investment's coming in and that's being used to drive growth at an even faster rate than we could have done it ourselves. So it's kind of why you've got that long tail at the beginning and then this great ramp up at the end.
No, it's interesting. And what were you turning over in the 3PL business before the injection of
we were probably turning over only in the region of 650, 700K, but excluding freight. So we didn't do any, all freight was on customer collect at the time.
Got you.
So purely on a service side of things. So it was relatively modest.
Yeah.
From that point of view.
Okay. And is it were they private investors, or were they like a PE firm, or?
No, private investors. They've got their own trading businesses as well. So I think just very entrepreneurial, looking to diversify, where they're invested. They're also a bit more mature in their journey.
Right.
So quite significant in terms of overall scale.
Yeah.
But really for us, it was just right people, right time.
And where did that relationship, like, how did you guys come to meet?
Slightly longer, interesting story, but it was more to do with around the earlier realization of breaking apart the software and the physical.
Yeah.
And we thought that the potential future could be focusing on the software element.
Yeah.
So we looked at the fulfillment side and said, well, actually, maybe there's a different path for our fulfillment operations in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So let's explore what that could look like whilst empowering us and allowing us to continue developing on the technology side of things.
Yeah.
And it was through that journey we kind of just got introduced. It was a soft introduction.
Yeah.
Didn't have any sort of real intent behind it at the time, but very quickly it became actually there's something here. And at the same time, we were also recognizing that what we were finding with the technology was that was actually just empowering and driving the physical growth as well, and actually enabling us to be more productive, more efficient, ultimately more profitable on the fulfillment side of things as well. So I think that was really the kind of just timing was key, and just, say right place, right time, right investors, right people to talk with. Yeah.
And then how long was it until you went into the next round of investment?
End of the first year, really. I think once we'd come to that point of going, well, actually, we've filled the first facility much quicker than we were expecting to. We need more space. We need to grow again.
Yeah.
And at the same time, because of Brexit being on the horizon, we were looking at the strategies of how do we continue this growth path without being restricted by only having a UK market to trade within and the complexity that exists cross-border after Brexit. So we were looking for acquisitions for about 12, 18 months. And the plan was always to do at least one European one. We actually needed a German one as well at the time. And also to do one US one. And we spent a lot of time, we visited a lot of companies, we looked at a lot of different sets of accounts. And it really came back to just cultural fit, finding the right people as much as the organization. There are lots of organizations out there in that space.
Yes.
So it was trying to find people that approached things in a similar way, or, had a lot of alignment with problem solving, the way they approach things, how we would interact with them.
Yeah.
Just so happens we found a US one and a Netherlands one all at the same time. So we decided to grow into those two regions through acquisition.
Yeah.
And that was really then the next phase of funding that we went through in order to fund the acquisitions.
Got you. So did you have to source the business you wanted to acquire first before taking it to investors and say, hey?
No, we did it collaboratively.
Okay.
And there were times where they would actually bring us businesses as well and say, hey, we think we found this one, and we would go away and have a look at it and say, we don't think that's quite right. And there were ones that we would look at together. So it was a very collaborative approach to how we would grow into those regions. Looking back, again, my crystal ball, I'm pleased we didn't do the German one at the same time.
Yeah.
If for nothing more than, it was a lot, because part of the attraction to us at the time was those businesses were also growing. Mm-hmm. So they were on the journey of growth too. And we were trying to also bring business into those sectors, those regions.
Yeah.
And in addition to doing the acquisitions, we then took on extra warehouse space in both regions. So we were having to deal with merging business cultures, different systems, finding the gaps, and it wasn't always finding the gaps that way. Sometimes it was finding our own gaps.
Right.
And then also dealing with the complexity of, hey, we've got new warehouse facilities that need setting up, running.
Yeah.
Infrastructure needs to go into them. How are we going to do it together? Is it old way, new way, hybrid?
Yeah.
What does that look like? Yeah.
Nice. And why Salt Lake City? What sort of, what took you there?
Do you know the amount of times I get asked that question when people say, why did you go for Salt Lake in the US? And I say, well, we had this great strategic vision for, we didn't. What we actually had was just right fit, right opportunity, right time.
Yeah.
Location was probably less of a parameter for us as it was right then.
Mm-hmm.
As it transpires, it's actually really well placed to support West Coast, but it also sits on that main east-west kind of highway route. So if you're bringing traffic cross country, It's well positioned for that as well. There's a lot of logistics infrastructure in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
And obviously, because you're slightly further away from that West Coast, you've not got the LA premiums, the California premiums that you see on
so
locations.
expensive.
It's really expensive.
Yeah.
So that was really why we ended up in Salt Lake. I think as we look to the future, though, we've already recognised the US is a huge physical place.
Yes.
Trying to service it from one location, cost efficiently versus balancing that service level, just one location is difficult.
Yeah.
So I think as we look to kind of the next 3 to 5 years, we're already looking at whether it's, Kentucky or North Carolina.
Yeah.
Where are we going to need an additional facility to support on that East Coast?
And do you think you're still going to follow the make sure it's right company culture, or do you feel like you're going to go down more let's strategy lead it, in terms of positioning of where the next sites might be?
I think probably more the second. I think now we've done the initial acquisitions that have given us the footholding.
Yeah.
I think what we've managed to create over the last 3 or 4 years now is with the blueprint. We've now got the systems, not just from a warehouse technology, but just financially. We know how we're going to operate. We know what platform it looks like. So I think if we did go down an acquisition route again, we'd have a very clear 30, 60, 90-day plan on the back of it with a goal of this is what you're going to be running. This is how we would want that to look. I think the reality is we're probably more likely now to go, actually, let's really dive into the data. Let's dive into what our client base is looking for. Let's look at what the market needs, and let's pick a location, and we'll start from the ground up with our blueprint essentially, and go that's the size space we need. These are going to be the key roles that we're looking for on day one to facilitate that site being operational, and then continue to grow it from there.
That's interesting. And what would you say then were there any surprises that you found, operating UK and then going into US?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Yeah.
Some surprises that I probably won't talk about on this podcast, but I think some of the biggest learning curves that happen really quickly is when you go into the US for the first time, you take the mindset and the mentality of it's just the UK but bigger.
Yeah.
It's not at all. If anything, it's closer to Europe when you talk about, zoning, cross-border trade. It's almost like having lots of mini countries all operating together. So there is definitely a localization element to it.
Yes.
But just the way you approach solving different problems, just the expectation, in the UK, I think we've headed down a path where, we've matured as a sector digitally. So online shopping now being a huge part of retail.
Yeah.
But the expectation is I order it today, I get it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's I order it this morning, I get it tonight.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where we're heading. And when you take that approach into the US, it's practically just not possible.
Yeah.
Unless you have physical facilities all over the USA, like an Amazon, like something like along the scale. So it's about being strategic, saying where is the right balance of going, okay, well, if we can't hit next day everywhere, if we go here, here, and here, can we deal with 2-day to 3-day for every region, every zip code in the US? And that's that nice balance between price versus service level and expectation.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I think, the strategy we're taking into.
Start with almost like standard, then push to premium.
Yeah. That's kind of the way that we're seeing that grow at the moment.
Interesting. Yeah. It's just crazy the scale of the US. But then I suppose if you end up with a site in each state, you're going to be on a huge business. So
I think that the challenge is always balancing operational requirements versus physical location. Spooling up warehouse locations is, it's not the difficult. Signing a lease, putting a building in isn't the difficult piece. Finding the right people, training it out, having repetition of roles and management. Yeah, that's where the expense comes. So I think the strategy we're always looking at internally is just where does the balance sit? Yes, you could put 50 different warehouse locations in the US, but now you've got 50 operations managers, 50 sets of staff, 50 sets of everything that you're doing versus can we do 4 or 5, rationalize that down and really invest, but the risk profile is different. Now you're going for bigger locations, potentially they're taking longer to fill. So it's a balance. That's the kind of thing we're always modeling in the background of what's the right route. And where do you want to leave your your business so that you can be agile in changing your mind, which is something we like to do a lot, and do something different.
Yeah. Well, when you went through the second round of funding, how much did you raise at that point?
It was very different the second round because it was really just to deal with the acquisitions.
Okay.
So the funding kind of, rather than traditionally lump sums, it was very much that's what it's going to look like to support the acquisition of these entities at the time. So
got you.
That pretty much finished off the second round as we kind of went through it.
Yeah.
I guess it's a little bit different when you deal with a non-VC model.
Yeah.
Which is the traditional kind of, here's the plan, here's what we want to do. Okay, that's it, green light, there's the funds that's in your account, you go and do it.
Yeah.
This was far more collaborative in the way we approached it. We did a lot of the due diligence together in partnership.
Yeah. Okay. And are you diluting each time, or does that?
To this point, we haven't.
Okay.
No, we've done a lot of this through shareholder loans.
Yeah,
that's been kind of the key way that we've driven the growth funding. I think it has its place.
Yeah,
and I think it was the right profile for us to take. Looking back, crystal ball again, I think we might make some slightly different adjustments and choices to doing that again. But I think when you're growing at speed and scale, one of the challenges is just around how do you keep up with that and how do you keep up with the opportunity. I think it's why it's key that it's why we stay so close to our investors at the moment in terms of just making sure that they're aware of what we're dealing with, what the opportunities look like in front of us, so that you can react really quickly when something is exciting and it's in front of you.
And investor businesses that you mentioned they were quite ahead in the journey and stuff. Were they from like an eCom background, a logistics background?
They're more from a distribution background.
Right. Okay.
And so they have, I suppose, 3PL elements within their business already today, but very much in owning the supply chain as well in terms of selling the product that's moving through their network. So,
right, okay.
They're quite established in that, but they're more Middle Eastern focused.
Oh, right. Okay.
So less in Europe and UK. So again, I think for them, this gave them the bridge into expanding into new markets and new territories. Yeah.
Nice. And touching into Netherlands, I guess, was there any, I guess, surprises UK to Netherlands? If I'm asking you this.
Less so. And I think partly that was down to the Netherlands investment was a bit more mature.
Yeah.
It had already got a really good structure of management right the way from the top down. So it was quite stable in that respect, and you're able to then pile more on it quicker because that exists on day one. I think it's going through its next phase now, though, in terms of its journey. By the end of this year, it will have, in the last 2 years, it will have now grown in over 100%.
Oh, wow.
And it's we're on track again for probably another 40% next year. So again, we're testing those boundaries. We're finding that how do you put the pieces in play today that support that next phase of growth that we're seeing.
And I guess were these bigger businesses that you acquired, or were they smaller businesses and you've grown them?
Both were smaller.
Okay.
Physically speaking.
Yeah.
In terms of revenue wise, both were smaller as well, actually, but not significantly so. So I think at the time when we did investments, our UK division was probably generating somewhere around 3.5, 4 million.
Yeah.
Netherlands was probably 3, and the US was very similar in their respective currencies.
Yeah.
So collectively, it pulled a lot together quite quickly.
Yeah.
But I think that's just, had we had 2 acquisitions that we'd done at the time where they were younger in their journeys. So the US was a younger operation, younger business.
Yeah.
So we had more that we had to do with it. I think Simon touched on it earlier with, just systems and tech.
Yeah.
They were the furthest behind on the curve when we made the acquisition. So they were the logical one to roll out the new software into
the
first. The quickest. They also got the biggest impact from it. Efficiency almost doubled overnight.
Yeah.
So it was a huge impact for us in the US. The Netherlands, a bit more established, it already got processes, systems, people, teams, operations managers. It got the infrastructure on day one. So there was less to have to worry about on that. And I think
more just finesse.
It was a benefit to us, which we didn't really, I think, appreciate probably at the time, just because you didn't have to touch it with kid gloves every day.
Yeah.
Whereas I think our journey in the US was a faster one in terms of, again, we made an investment. We put a new facility in literally, I think we took the keys to the new warehouse before we'd even finished signing the acquisition documents.
Yeah.
That's how quick we were running in the US at the time. And then since then, we've just added a second site in Salt Lake as well.
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
And what was the reason for going second site in Salt Lake and not another location?
We wrestled with that for a long time, actually. And I think it was driven really by probably two key factors. One, we had new business already in onboarding or pending onboarding that were happy with Salt Lake, wanted it in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
So we needed more space anyway. But I think it came back to us ultimately of just saying, look, our resource today exists in Salt Lake. We spent a lot of time bringing in the layers of management and support that we need for that business.
Yeah.
The next time we move into a second location, so Kentucky at the moment is kind of on our favored radar. We're going to have to repeat all of that.
Yeah.
And what we'd like really is to be able to lean on our Salt Lake management and experience to help, educate and just bring that level of knowledge up in the second location, which means we need our Salt Lake facility also to be a bit more stable and established in terms of we're not trying to grow it 100% year over year, and they're in that same journey. So I think there's balances on both sides that we need to do.
Got you. Okay. And in terms of yourself in the business, what do you think you enjoy the most about getting your hands on or doing or pushing right now? Because I appreciate you came from this all-rounder sort of background, but now that you're a much bigger entity, like what is it you really like to get your hands stuck onto? It's
definitely changed over the years, I would say. I think one of the things I enjoy seeing the most now is we've spent a long time really trying to look for the right talent. Yeah. Bringing that knowledge into the business and just, knowing that I'm not the expert in all of these different things, but we've got vision and we've got a goal and we can see opportunity. We want to help steer and direct from that level, but knowing now that you've got individuals that can just come in and they flourish, they own processes, they own elements of what we do now. Yeah. Giving them the autonomy to kind of just succeed and just the little pointers in directions of, have you thought about this? Or actually, if we can move down in this path, this is kind of where we're heading. Do you think that changes decisions you're taking today? I think that's probably been a big enjoyable part for me. And I think just seeing a lot of what we do transition into our technology more so as well. And trying to just look at, what, 5 years ago, 10 years ago was a great big horrible Excel spreadsheet like most businesses. So much data gets pulled out of different areas and that's the medium that you pull it together and going, well, what are we actually trying to solve with that? Yeah. How do we make that real time? How do we get that into the technology and how do we make it more powerful than it is today? So I think that journey we're going through at the moment, I think that's a big part of it. And bringing our experience from the automotive side of things, which is very much, it's cutting edge in terms of it's right part, right place, right time. And you get it wrong and there's big impacts. Yeah. It's no different to eCom. It's no different to B2B in that respect. Where it is different is some of the compliance and the labeling, the needs that sit around it. And it's why, again, within the technology, we had to build something that would support D2C and B2B at the same time. Yeah. Businesses tend to sort of fragment at some point in their journey and go, I'm going to focus on that. Yeah. Or I'm going to focus on that. And we didn't want that. We wanted to be able to provide both. We were very comfortable with the complex compliance side of B2B. Yeah. And we do a lot of B2C and D2C. So how do we make sure that we can support both? And you don't have to have either two systems running in the same warehouse, or you have to turn around to then your partners and say, I'm really sorry, we can't support you with this element. You need to go and find another partner to deal with your compliance elements to be it Tesco, Sainsbury's, Boots, wherever you're delivering into, where you get it wrong, that non-compliance fee, that's your margin gone. Yeah. So again, that has to come from the technology and it can't come from, we use the names Bob quite a lot when we're talking about people in the business in terms of here's an example, but we can't rely on Bob's knowledge of the way Tesco works. Yeah. Because when Bob takes his day off or he's sick or the team's growing or the volume expands beyond his capability, that's when errors creep in, that's when issues creep in, and that's when essentially those non-compliances come in. So you've got to drive it from process, you've got to drive it through controlling that and then bringing that back into the system. Yeah. And close out those little loopholes of just going, well, that's not, you can't do that because the system won't let you. Have you got the right labels for a Tesco shipment? Have you got the right labels for a Sainsbury's? They're different, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's, again, just bring that back into the system and say, I don't want to go to an Excel file and go, I'll print my Tesco's labels off. I'll print my Sainsbury's labels off.
Got you.
I just want to go, give me what I need for this order.
Yeah.
Here's what you should have. And that's that intelligence piece we talk about of just, you've got to bake it into owning that tech stack.
Yeah.
If you're going to be truly successful at the B2B and the B2C side. So that's kind of where we blend the two worlds.
It is interesting because I guess it's not common, right, for the 3PLs to go down both B2B and B2C.
I think a lot of people on their journey will say we do both.
Yeah.
But I think, if I go back for us just 3 years ago, we were running two systems in the warehouse.
Yeah.
We went to the industry standard before putting our own platform in, B2C platform.
Mm.
And it was absolutely fine. It was good at just B2C day to day.
Yeah.
But it had no concept of, pallets, compliance, the bonded elements we needed to deal with on the B2B side of our business. So we would end up with a different system managing that side.
Yeah.
Which is a horrible customer experience. And it's operationally, internally, it's also difficult to really look at that. And even if you overlay it with some kind of BI or reporting, you're still a bit fragmented in your view of what's going on. Yeah. So again, that was core to us in how we bring the best bits of everything together into one software platform and then deploy that platform in all regions.
Yeah.
So now you're empowering businesses to grow internationally as well. So if we're supporting you in the UK, you're flicking a toggle to say, turn on the Netherlands warehouse. Because your intelligence is in the system.
Yeah.
Now the other location inherits all of that intelligence on day one. So all the learnings that you go through, and when errors do creep in, it's about getting to root cause, fixing the root cause, putting some, whether it's development or new processes or controls in place. And it means that actually when you expand, you inherit all of that knowledge. So you shouldn't have to go through the same pain points again of, that's the learning we had in the UK, that's the learning we had in the US. It's one learning and it should happen organization wide.
Interesting. And I guess if like brands go to get to a certain size, so, I think you talked about earlier, some brands are, this is before we were on the pod, but some brands can literally be in the bedroom still. Is there a certain size where they get past that, they go into a 3PL, and then they get to a certain size and it makes more sense for them to just invest in their own site and come away from a 3PL?
I think a lot of businesses do it, and I think it's depends on the strategy of what they're focusing on. I think there's a very distinct difference between, are you a brand that's selling a product and your focus is growing your market share, growing your revenue and your sales of that product?
Yeah.
Or are you a fulfillment business and you want to control your own supply chain?
Yeah.
There are pros and cons to both. If you're a scale-up business, owning your own supply chain, I think in our view is probably very much it's a bottleneck. It's a risk for you. You put your four walls in. If you're growing rapidly, you're going to outgrow your four walls. You're going to have to look at staffing levels. You're going to be constantly dealing with the operational challenges rather than dealing with what I really want to do is grow my brand.
Yeah.
I want to increase my order output. I want to increase my presence on retail marketplaces. I want to be on D2C at the same time. I want whatever that might be. So what that really is, it's an enabler for them to focus on what they're doing. So it's partly down, I think, to their strategy of how they want to grow. I think what we see is there's also a natural cut-in.
Yeah.
If you're in your bedroom and you've started up and you've got product, and it's no more product than you can fit in a garage, operationally, it probably still makes sense for you to continue serving that.
Yeah.
But that really has to stitch back into, what does your product look like? What does the market look like? What does your growth plan and ambition look like?
Yeah.
And if you're expecting something that's going to do this, then you're going to want to get into a model where you can support that early on. So I wouldn't say there's a one size fits all solution. We have a huge range of different clients that, anything from 30 or 40 orders a month B2B into, you could be doing 10,000 orders a day.
Yeah.
So there's a real mix of what we see coming through at the moment. What I would add is, dovetailed into that is probably client sensitivity to pricing.
Okay.
So one of the things we see, and we kind of draw it as a curve sometimes, but if you think about when a startup in their garage starts up, they're on this scale, and this scale here is price sensitivity.
Yeah.
And they start down here and they've got very low price sensitivity because they don't really know what to expect.
Yeah.
They've got no perception of it, and they don't have the volume to turn around to you and say, I need my price to be at this level.
Yeah.
And as they start to grow and they grow on this journey, they journey through this period of going, right, I've now got some volume, I've got some scale. So the most important thing to me, I'm going to turn around and I want the lowest prices I can get. So their price sensitivity starts increasing.
Yeah.
And at some point on their journey, assuming they're successful with it, they'll hit the top of this bell curve where all of a sudden they're starting to realize that the balance for them is not in having the cheapest price, it's having the best value.
Yeah.
And that might be, it's a competitive price, but I need the service to be at the right level. I need to make sure that my CS team are not getting noised through back channels because my price is driving a behavior that's causing problems further down the pipe.
Yeah.
And that sensitivity really only comes once they mature to a certain point. So I think there's a range within that sweet spot that you're always looking at. And businesses will go through that cycle potentially several times. But the first time they've done it generally tends to be, that's the kind of the sweet spot of going, if you're in a world where a 3PL makes sense, if you have hit the top of your curve, that's the start of your question, maybe that's when they're thinking about, do we bring it back in-house? We've done our growth. We're not planning to grow another 100%, 1,000%.
Yeah.
So now do we want to think about operationally owning our supply chain?
Yeah.
So
interesting. And when you say you hit the top of the curve from a pricing piece, what sort of price would that, or is it all subjective?
It's all subjective. I think it's when I say about price, it's more about when you're comparing apples for apples, whatever it is you're pricing, there are some core standards you'd expect to see on a typical fulfillment quote. But when you're building out a solution, it's really difficult to sometimes compare those. But it's more about, take freight as a good example. You want to push freight to, zero margin or as small a margin as you can get away with in terms of what you're paying for.
Yeah.
And as you drive down that, invariably you start to look at different solutions. You look from premium providers, you go down to the other end of the market, and you experience both.
Yeah.
And sometimes the experience can be great. Other times it can be a challenge, and you turn around and say, okay, well, I understand now the cost differential, but the service differential is too much for me to accept. So somewhere in the middle must be a balance. And how do you find the balance?
Yeah.
And that's where I think a 3PL is helpful, because you can then leverage their economies of scale.
Yeah.
You should be able to plug into their networks and use some of their buying power to actually say, well, maybe I can get that service, but maybe I'm not paying the price I would pay doing it myself. So I think, different solutions in there.
And you talk about going for added value of service. Are there any companies that you guys partner with at the minute that, let's say, they're a tech company and they provide X, or there's a have you guys got any partnerships with any tech any other companies that you think actually?
We do. We've got partnerships that happen at different levels. We've got partnerships that help brands grow internationally. So things like a Passport Global type partnership where they're utilizing that network to get through that cross-border trade barrier, duties, taxes, different countries. So those partnerships work really well for us. We've got partnerships that help advise and guide people on, again, cross-border trade, mostly duties, taxes, setting up entities in new countries. Yeah. And they work both ways. And then I think when we get into, I suppose, the partnerships and the tech that sits behind them, we've then got an element that we do in-house as well, where we do different projects on a project basis, where we'll build something out ourselves to meet a client solution. And that can be anything from helping them organize their data and report back to them, but also through to, when you talk about complexity, it could be something as unique as, I want to send an order to Joey and I want a letter in it that says, "Dear Joey," but I want to tell him about his birthday gift. And at the same time, I want it in a blue box with a red ribbon. Right. And if you don't control that process or that tech that sits behind it, good luck trying to get that to happen every single time from an operation. Yeah. So I think, again, there are elements there that you can build out internally that support it. But partnerships are definitely a key part, I think, of what we see as certainly a way of helping clients in one region grow into new regions. And it's reciprocative as well, because it also enables those partners to get something else from the relationship. Yeah. Whether that's data, whether they've got their own unique dashboard they can log into. Yeah. So they can manage end client, or whether that's, different channels of integration that they can't achieve themselves because there's market localization or something similar happening, then I think it's going to be a key part of the strategy going forward. Interesting.
Well, you mentioned you've got a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, Are you guiding them down the route? Can you see them following footsteps?
If you asked me what I wanted to do at 15, then good luck with an I'd like drive a car, please. I'd like race cars.
Yeah.
No, I think very much. I don't want to influence them. I want them to have every opportunity to kind of follow in footsteps or do their own thing, carve out their own niche. Yeah. My daughter's actually doing work experience with us in 2 weeks' time.
Is she? Nice.
So we'll see how that pans out, but gives her a bit of a flavour of everything that goes on in the business.
Yeah.
I think my son's got a very financial head on him, even though he's young.
Oh, right.
And he came down and sat with me in the lounge the other day with his phone. And he sat down, he put his feet over the sofa and said, "Dad, what have I got to do to be your CFO?"
Really?
Nice. Yeah. Okay, that's an interesting question from someone. I'd have expected it maybe from my daughter a bit further on, but he was really into it. He's writing notes in his phone of all the the steps in the conversation. And
CFO, good ambition. Yeah, and I guess you must have that added protection of like you probably know it served you well. It's a good solid market. And then are they so he sounds like he's leaning into it.
I think he's leaning into it more than she is at the moment.
Yeah.
It is definitely a market that's growing, and I think from what we're seeing, I don't expect UK fulfillment, or in fact fulfillment in general as a sector, to start contracting certainly within the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah,
the data we're looking at is saying it's going to continue growing compound every year.
Mm-hmm.
I think UK is starting to mature a little bit more.
Yeah,
it's now slightly larger from a digital perspective than we were seeing in Europe. Germany being the biggest fulfillment market actually in Europe.
Right.
So I don't think as a sector, it's at risk in that profile, but I do think we will see some consolidation.
Yeah.
There's definitely going to be a consolidation of players across the globe, I think, as brands look to expand into new territories. The quickest way of doing that, is either through acquisition.
Yeah. Who's the one out there at the minute in your eyes that's like acquiring, businesses, and who do you feel we see
quite a bit of it, but also I think we see it from the VC side of things probably more so than other businesses. So we see the news posts, you follow what's going on. We see a lot of comms around VC entering and exiting from businesses after successful transitions.
Yeah.
So I think it's moving constantly. We get frequent inquiries coming through. But I think just in terms of where our journey is at the moment, it's always a balance.
Yeah.
But I think we'd always come back to the opportunity piece of just, we're always looking from that entrepreneurial standpoint of just what's in the best interest of the business, the clients that we're serving today. How do we, empower that to grow faster or stronger?
And I guess, is there an end game? Is there a point in time where you think, if I get to this profile, I think I'd be pretty comfortable to...
I think the immediate end game is probably more of a transition. So there'll come a point where I think when I say transition, a transition from being a blended tech and fulfillment business, where we're offering both. I think there'll come a natural point where we say we're in enough countries, we've got enough warehouse locations. Do we really want to go and put something else in another region? I think the focus will probably just shift more into the tech side.
Yeah.
And it will be more about how do we take that tech and commercialize that as a standalone application and build that side of the business to run in parallel with it. And I think the two will feed off each other anyway. I'll never say never, but I think that's just immediately when we look at our horizon of what the next few years potentially looks like. That's kind of where we're looking at the moment.
Brilliant. And I guess going back to 2010, if you were going to give yourself any wisdom, advice, what would you say to yourself?
I would probably say bring in the talent sooner.
Yeah.
And don't hold on to as much for as long.
Right.
I think is the main thing. I think the benefit you see when you bring talented people in with experience that have the right fit, they add value straight away.
Yeah.
And they add value across the business, not just in the function they're doing. So I think it's a story of people probably.
Yeah.
Just make sure you've got the right people. And on the flip side of that, when you've not got the right people, sometimes you've got to make tough decisions, but the quicker you can make those decisions, it's in the benefit of the business. So don't procrastinate on them, take them quickly, move on and continue sort of driving it forward in that way.
Love that. Yeah. Well, Stephen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Nice to be here.
Cheers.